Any additions or deletions to our agenda? I think the item on number 4, correct, Renee, will be delayed to another time? Item number 4?
Correct.
Okay, other than that, I don't know of any. And we don't have a reason to go into executive session tonight. Next item is for public comment. Is that why you're here, Maggie?
Headwaters.
We're not hearing anything. I'm not. Okay, I can't hear you, Maggie, but I see Jeff French is jumping in, and I guess I should have started off. I should have started off to see if everyone can hear clearly, and to please be patient as we try this technology for the first time for a select board meeting. So Renee, you can hear okay?
I can hear.
Okay, I can hear. Marilee?
I can hear very well.
All right, Joy?
Yeah, I can hear quite well. Periodically, there's some strange noises in the background. I'm not sure what they are.
Well, it might be helpful if we put mute on if you're not talking and just listening. Mike?
I can hear, and a real quick comment for those who can't talk, when you're brought into this web meeting, you're automatically muted, so you'll need to click the little microphone, red microphone in front of you.
That's helpful. Jeff? All right. And Jeff French?
Hear me? This is Andrea.
Yes, I can hear you, Andrea. Jeff French? Yeah, I don't see you. I don't need to, but can you hear us okay?
So we have 13 people that have joined so far.
I'm Mike Webster, and I haven't announced myself.
Hi, Mike. Glad you made it.
Is Mike identified as caller 01?
I'm not sure. I'm just dialed in over the phone. I'm not on the web meeting. I'm just on the phone.
Oh, okay.
So that's probably you then, Mike.
I'm looking. Oh, here we go. All right. Again, ask for everyone's patience as we go through this. Thank you, Renee, for investigating this with our VCAM folks. And, you know, it seems like it will work. We are, anyways, here in the town meeting practicing social spacing. I made Al sit on the other side of the table. So items for public comment. I know Al is here. I asked him if he just wanted to speak about, you know, what's going on in town and just some general things, and perhaps where best to get information right now. Obviously, things are changing by the day. Reviewing our minutes from our last meeting, the one prior to the town meeting, there wasn't a lick about the virus in there at all, and that's less than a month ago. So, Al, do you want to?
Yep, sure. As Phil said, it's really changing minute by minute. I mean, as far as on our end as EMS workers, literally it changes about every 2-3 hours. And I think it's just as we work through the process, we're very fortunate. We're well prepared. we don't have, knock on wood at this point, we don't have a shortage of equipment. So we're in a much better place than a lot of areas are. One of the things really that, for a long time, whenever flu season started, I started early on, on everybody in the department that, it's flu season, take the precautions. And it's pretty much the precautions we need to take now, as far as going to people's homes and dealing with sick people. So, good on that respect. Staffing is good. I mean, got a great bunch of first responders, so they're there to service. I think probably one of the things to really, really keep remembering and passing on to everybody is stay calm. This is the beginning. It may or may not get worse. Just stay in touch with your neighbors. Really, all the things that have been going on Front Porch Forum. Just be considerate of everybody. We'll make it through this. Back September 11th in 2011. Everybody was almost in the same boat, wondering what tomorrow was going to bring. So, and we made it through that. So we'll make it through this. As far as the town resources, I think really the biggest thing, is, if you have a lot of questions, 211 is the state depository really for answering a lot of the questions. They're continuously compiling a list of frequently asked questions to have the answers. And they're a great resource to be able to get the answers also. And obviously the health department website. And, the media is carrying all the links. So there's certainly plenty of access to information. Truthfully, I think it's probably a little bit of information overload, trying to digest a lot of things. Renee's been working with the Resource Center and trying to put together basically a neighbor helping neighbor scenario. So if we do start needing people that have needs, I'm not sure, Renee, how far we've got with getting the point person up on that, but we're working that process. And, I think we'll have a good handle on that. The fire department is going to let the Resource Center we're going to try to step away from that part of it so that, we're going to have our own set of circumstances to deal with. But, if it gets to an emergent level of need, we will be there to step in and fill the gaps and do what needs to be done like usual. So, but I think the Resource Center is going to be able to handle a lot of this.
Handle the
Day-to-day requests.
Elderly person
Yep.
needs some groceries
Yep.
or
Absolutely. Yep.
medicine, pick up some medicine
Yep.
or something like that
Yep.
versus emergency.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Renee, you got anything to add on to that?
I saw the Front Porch Forum posts. They were so wonderful and kind and generous, but I also wanted to make sure we were very thoughtful in how we did that. So we weren't further spreading the virus among the most vulnerable populations. So I did a lot of, talking to different organizations and through other municipalities, and it became clear we didn't really have strong, clear guidance for this. So we've been sort of developing that. I know the state has just issued some more clear guidance on that as a result. I think we're all learning from this. And so I reached out to Rachel Kring at the Hinesburg Community Resource Center, and we've been, and with Chief Barber and together we've been sort of collaborating on this. Chief Barber had someone from within his department that worked on a document for us that could be an active live document that we can eventually send links out to. And so folks can either sign up for different ways to help, and they also can different services that they need. And we would have a point person be sort of a triage and then direct them to the appropriate organization to get help or to offer help. So we have that in place and getting ready to be able to, send that off soon.
Okay, are there any other questions for Chief Barber? No? Jeff, were you having... Jeff,
Sorry.
two.
Were you having trouble accessing some information?
Are you speaking to me,
Yeah.
Jeff Chobrock?
Yes.
Yeah, I just think that that utilizing Front Porch Forum and Facebook are one method, but having the actual information, Al's been putting out the State Department of Health information to the Select Board. Having, information like that on the town website would be helpful because it's a trusted source. We need more of those in our information stream.
Okay. Al's
Okay,
shaking his head.
Al's shaking
So,
his head.
anything else for Al?
Yeah, Al, I appreciate your calmness right now and speaking about it and your clarity. It's a good, reassuring sense. I appreciate it.
And I want to reiterate what George just said. I really appreciate Al's leadership on this and his calm demeanor and his thoroughness. I think it's a real gift to all of us.
Thank you. I told Phil earlier online that my blood pressure has actually gone down in the last 2 days. So I guess I'm just wired different than everybody else.
Is there anything the select board, as a board, can provide you and your
Right.
team, or anything in particular?
I don't think so. I mean, we're, as far as resources go, we have in hand what we need for this, certainly for an extended foreseeable future. And I think that, it's going to run its course, and I don't know of anything. I mean, it's just, being there, knowing if we need to reach out to you, we can. I
Okay.
mean, that's certainly, and we don't, certainly don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Yeah.
Because this, it is changing so fast
Yeah.
that, it's amazing. It's amazing how things are happening. It really is happening fast. I literally, it's about every 3 hours something changes.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, we get a break during the night and then it all floods in the morning. So,
Mm-hmm.
I have about 4 conference calls running continuous, basically giving updates. The hospital's being great. The emergency room is being great. The health department, literally it's learning as we go.
Yeah.
And, really to put out really to the people, a lot of the information that's coming out, it's by experience. We'll try something, it works or doesn't work. And
I think
yeah.
our meeting is an example of
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
We're
We're
modifying as we go. I know that
modifying as we go.
Renee,
Yep.
with a lot of the town activities, is
Yeah. Yep.
hearing the best information that's out
Yeah.
there
Yep.
and taking the best action we can.
Yeah.
And if we need to modify it,
Right.
we'll modify
We're
it.
going to change. Yep. And like I say, if there's anything you need, certainly reach out to me, and I'll do the same. Keep you in the loop. And I don't have a whole lot more than that right now. I think we're definitely going to run in at a point eventually. If it does hit harder up here, our resources are going to get taxed, but we're fortunately ahead of the curve.
Mhm.
So I think we're going to do well before
Okay.
it's over. So, and it, really it's for the public just to stay calm, get out, enjoy the spring, enjoy the time with your family and your friends that you can talk to, reconnect with people that you haven't talked to in a long time, over the phone, over email. Just it's a new day.
Mhm.
Just think of it that way.
Yeah. And we will get through it.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Al.
I will go get online.
All right. I'm sure you will. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. It's interesting. I am usually looking around the table looking for clues like, okay, everything's good. So every once in a while, if you guys just nod your head or whatnot, then I know I'm not losing anybody. The next item is an important item for the first meeting of the group, and that's the organizational meeting. There is a write-up in our packet on how it should go, but basically we need to select a chair and a vice chair for the upcoming year. The duties, I think everybody understands what they would be. Hi, Marilee.
Hi, Marilee.
I would like to nominate and move that the board vote to elect Phil Pouch to serve as chair of the select board for a one-year period until the annual organizational meeting on March 2021.
All right, is there a second?
I second. This is Jeff French.
Okay, hi Jeff, thanks. And so, no surprise from me, I'm happy to do it. It takes some time, but I think I described it a couple of times this week as like becoming a father. You never really had any
But you
formal
learn
training,
as you go.
but you learn as you go.
So I certainly would be willing to do that. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor of Phil for chair for 1 year, say aye.
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 Raise your hand. Okay, so that looks unanimous. And Val is on, right? Renee, I should have mentioned that.
Yes, I am on, Phil, yes.
Okay, but are you looking or are you just listening?
Just listening.
I am watching all your faces in your little boxes and listening.
Oh, but we're not seeing you. You're tricky.
You're tricky.
All right, so I
All right,
accept
so I accept,
as the chair, and I've said this over the last couple of years. I don't pretend to know how to do this in every instance, and so anytime, anywhere, if anyone has some suggestions, or if I've misspoken or taken the wrong step, I am always open to anybody who wants to give me some feedback. So with that, we would need a vice chair, and I would nominate Marilee. She's got the most experience on the board, and from my experience, she's learned this job very well and has put in an exceptional amount of time to learn it and be open-minded. So I would nominate Marilee as vice chair.
I'll second that. A second? And third?
Any discussion? Marilee, do you have anything to say?
No, thank you. I do. I think the thing I have going for me is that since I'm retired, I have more time. But I have learned a lot in the past 3 years, and I look forward to learning a lot more.
Okay. So all those in favor of Marilee
Chair.
for vice chair,
Say aye and raise your
say
hand.
aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Am I supposed to vote?
Yeah, you can vote for yourself, I think.
Okay.
Okay. So,
Thank
we've
you very
done
much
that.
for
So
the
thank you very
confidence
much
in
for
both
the
Marilee and I. I think Marilee and I both know that we're from the same neighborhood. And so we will be extra diligent to make sure that our views and our perspectives will be as broad as possible and try to represent the entire town. I did put together, I think it's good time now, since now I'm the chair and you have to listen for a minute. Just sort of my expectations going forward, they're no different than in previous years, things we've developed over time and have, I think, allowed the board to be productive and open. And that's one, is the meetings we want to make them open to all and every opinion to be allowed. So we'll go out of our way to make sure that happens. we'll want to respect all town members and give them their time. Um, Speaking as the chair, and perhaps for the rest of us, we prefer not to have surprises like something, dropped in the middle of a meeting that's unexpected and we can't prepare for. So if anybody has new issues, when new issues come up, we prefer to delay a vote on that to give townspeople an opportunity to weigh in, and for consideration by all people. If you do have an issue or a concern, raise those right away so that we can address them. And, be prepared for the meetings and ask questions before or during the meetings. And don't be afraid to. Every question, if you're asking a question, then more than likely somebody else wants to ask that same question. Just a reminder that as select board members, we shouldn't be discussing any select board topics with more than one other person. So if there's three of us together, maybe tipping one at the public house, we wouldn't be able to discuss select board business. We prefer to stay off a front porch forum except for announcements. And anytime you do express your opinions, it's your personal opinion and not that of the board unless the board agrees. And then in our emails, try not to reply all unless it's just informational. So we don't want to have discussions on email. And we do have some projects that I see. I'm sure there'll be more that come up. But I did share these with Renee. We have some big projects coming up, so I look for the board members to think about which one, if you'd like to champion one. We have the negotiations for the ambulance transport coming up. We'll have to develop an RFP and move forward for July 1st. We have to prepare for the wastewater treatment bond vote in November, and we need to find some legislative funding. So if anybody has any of that in their shed out back, share that with us. We have to expand the water system before any development can happen. So we'll need to develop plans for that. And we have an impact fee development study and actions, perhaps, that are going to move forward. And finally, I think we've got to find a way to support our road crew. They've been understaffed for quite a while, and this winter in particularly has been a real struggle for 3 people to be doing all this work. So I think there are more items. We don't need to necessarily discuss them, but think about these. And, if there's any that any board member wants to help champion, I think that would be good. And perhaps Renee will, I'm sure, give us a couple more to work on. But in the past, we have divided things up in some cases, and it's been helpful. Any comments?
I had
Yeah.
told you before, I would really appreciate continuing to work on the ambulance.
Perhaps at our next meeting, we'll kind of go over them and have a discussion about that and whether it's just one person or more than one. It doesn't have to necessarily be one.
Right.
So. All right. Next item on the agenda is number 4, and I think we already said we were going to skip that for tonight. That resident on Texas Hill was hoping to do this in person, and so that might get delayed for some time. Next item is an update on the LaPlatte Headwaters Town Forest Management Plan. We have a management plan. Yep.
Are you going to make the annual appointments tonight?
Oh, yes.
And also, designate and talk about publication, how you announce
Yes.
meetings.
Yep, that's my fault. I got to pull that up. Renee gave us that.
but it's a little tricky. I got so many things open.
Phil.
No, I've got it here. So we've done the easy stuff. The next item, and Renee, I think you've checked with all of these folks that they're willing to continue to serve, and that there's no reason at this point we wouldn't appoint them. Yes?
Phil, we might want to hold off. I haven't gotten a hold of everyone on this list. So we may want to save this for the next meeting, just that section.
Okay, we could do that. So this was
And shingle and wood, but there's important ones there like Al Barber, so we can hold off on that. There's no critical reason to move forward. And the next item then is to designate our newspaper of record. So in the past, we've been using the Citizen, which comes out weekly, and they do fairly good coverage of town activities. So that would be the recommendation. Any comments or thoughts on that?
Here, Andrea. It's not only for the articles, but it's where we post any legal notices.
yes.
Is the newspaper of record?
Right. No. Yes, I could have been a little clearer on that. You're right. So
Yeah.
while they write articles, this is the newspaper of record for all of our formal postings.
Yeah. Could I make another comment?
Yes.
I'd also really appreciate if the agendas could be posted on Front Porch Forum with the designated time, and that I think there are way more, especially these days, way more people who will check Front Porch Forum and the town website, and I guess Facebook, although not everybody's on Facebook, and that, of course, we need to, you need to post it in the physical places, but having the agenda and the meeting packet on Front Porch Forum is extremely helpful. And for it to be there, in a timely fashion would be great. And I think we'll all get way more comfortable now that we kind of have to do that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and I think we
Phil,
we
can I
have.
Yeah, go ahead, Renee.
Yeah, go ahead, Renee.
Andrea, is there a time you haven't seen it on Front Porch Forum recently?
I would say I have seen it on Front Porch Forum recently. I just would hope that that can be a practice that we always have.
I think it has been consistent in the last few months.
Okay. Yeah, I'm.
Seen it, let me know.
I just wanted to reiterate that and know that the public knows that they can look there.
Okay. I mean, I think it's our intention, and Renee has been doing it, so we can continue that practice. It certainly seems, while Front Porch Forum
Has its downside, it has an awful lot of upside to it, and we certainly see that. And a lot of people are using it. There's no question about it. Okay, we'll get back to the newspaper of record. Yes?
Phil, real quick. Maggie Gordon sent us communication regarding the posting of Front Porch Forum, and I don't know if she wanted to speak to that while we were still talking about this.
Okay.
You were off mute for a second. Okay, it sounds like her mic doesn't work, and she's just referring us to the email she sent.
Okay, well, we did see that email. Okay, all right.
Thank you, Maggie.
So back to, now I gotta find it. The, God. Newspaper of record. Any other discussion on the newspaper of record? Is there a motion?
Phil,
Shall-
before I go, Maggie would like that read, I guess, the email.
It'll take me a minute to pull it up, but I can do that.
I have it here if you want me to.
Sure, go ahead. This is Spike, right?
Yes. And there's a lot of background noise if people could mute their mics. As part of this organizational meeting, I would like the select board to commit to an open, transparent process in regards to its agenda and supporting materials, specifically for the board to resolve to, 1, post the select board agenda on Front Porch Forum at least 48 hours in advance of the meeting, and 2, post the meeting packet on the town's website at least 24 hours in advance. This goes beyond requirements of the open meeting law, and I believe our community deserves nothing less. The more people take part in the political process, the better its decisions will be. As of Monday, Front Porch Forum had 3,519 members in Hinesburg. It is unquestionably the best way to reach a larger web-based audience. The Planning and Zoning Office has been posting Planning Commission and DRB agendas on Front Porch Forum for quite some time. While the select board agendas have begun to appear, it's either unreliable or they show up in the 5:30 edition on the same day as the meeting. Having the meeting packet materials available to the public and it is also crucial for an informed public, not to mention an informed select board. By making a commitment to reliably posting its agenda and meeting packet to the public in a timely manner, the select board will at the same time commit itself to an open and transparent process that will, I believe, earn the trust of the Hinesburg community. Many thanks, Maggie Gordon.
Okay, any comments? I'll have some, but.
Is there
Anyone
a yeah, this is Jeff French. Is there a general sense that we're not being transparent or open? And I only ask, it's just, we've had 2 folks ask about it, and I just worry that we're not, because that's one of my things I want to make sure we are. And I think the 48-hour lead time would definitely help on Front Porch Forum, but I just want to make sure there's not a bigger, concern out there. And since Maggie can't use her mic, well, we'll say that she's saying yes.
Yeah. I will say, we've been following all the rules that we have to follow. I've not got a lot of complaints that we're not being open. I know Maggie has brought up it'd be good to have it on Front Porch Forum. I know we have started to put it on Front Porch Forum. I would agree that sometimes the packet is slow getting on the website, but I don't believe that Renee's not getting the packet together. It's getting posted on the website. So that's something we certainly can work toward. And I think, we are committed to being open, and we have been putting it on Front Porch Forum, so we will do that. I also see from one side is that sometimes these meetings can be very dynamic, and all the information sometimes does not come in 48 hours ahead of time. And that's in many cases fault, but we're waiting for information to come so we can address it. So there will be times when information shows up on the packet in less than 48 hours. But we hear, Maggie.
So all of the
Go ahead, Renee.
I just want to be clear on all of the open meeting law requirements have always been met. Front Porch Forum has been utilized, and so it sounds like there's some people that maybe are missing some posts. Please have concerns, reach out to me, and I can share with you the posts that have been made on Front Porch Forum with regard to the agenda. The select board receives their packet long before it's on the website, so that they can completely make sure the agenda works, and then it gets posted posted on the website. We are, this last agenda, we're in a different time right now. I've been working a lot on researching an online platform. I want you to know we have at least 17 people. We've had different people come and go that have been able to participate tonight and watch this meeting. So I think that work paid off. And the select board was being very transparent, creating these public meeting packets before the open meeting came law. So the select board work versus the planning commission DRB is a very different body with different focuses and different things that they have to do. So it will look very different. But if you have any concerns, please feel free to.
Okay, thanks, Renee. I think that was good. Any other comments before we move on to the item to vote? I don't think we had a motion.
Let me see if I can find
We need
it.
a motion for the newspaper first. right?
Yes.
Yes.
I would do it if you can bring it up.
Yeah, I know. That's
Yeah, I know, that's right.
That would help.
I think the motion's on the bottom.
Oh, maybe let me scroll down here. Scroll up.
Yeah, I've got it. I make a motion to designate the Citizen as the newspaper of record in which required warnings and/or notices are published.
Second.
For a second? All right. Any more discussion? All those in favor of designating the newspaper of record?
As the
As
citizens say
the citizens
aye and
say
raise your hand.
Aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
We've got them all. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And we've got one more
And we've
order
got
of business.
one more order of,
And
and
my
my
thing is slow
thing
to
is
move.
slow to
Although,
move. Although,
Renee, I think I'm
I
trying to
have
move
that
your.
you're,
What's that?
If you want
What's
to just read that.
Go ahead.
I make a motion to recognize crime and fidelity coverage of 500,000 per occurrence as provided via the Vermont League of Cities and Towns Property and Casualty Inter-Municipal Fund as the bonding instrument required by 24 V.S.A. I don't know how to say that little whirligig. 832 parentheses B.
State statute, Marilee.
Thank you. State statute 832B.
Second.
Like-
okay. Seconded by Mike. And so we're required to have this bond. We've used DLCT now for years. And I think it's a recommendation by Renee. We continue with it. All those in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
all right. Thanks to Andrea for not letting me skip that.
The next item is item 5, and this is the updated plan for the LaPlatte Headwater Town Forest Management. And Pat, I see you have joined us.
John, Treffry is here also, just audio.
Okay.
Okay.
Pat,
Pat?
can is your
And,
mic turned
Is
on?
your mic turned on?
Wave your hand, Pat, if
Wave
you
your-
can hear me.
You can hear me.
Pat, if you see your name on the screen, you need to turn your mic on. Pat, can you hear us? Don't think she's here. John, can you hear us?
Sure can. Pat,
Do you want to go ahead?
I'm okay with going ahead. I might be able, if Pat called in, should be able to at least speak. Let me see if my wife can't call her using a cell phone.
I can call her on my cell phone, John.
Okay, all right. Yeah, 3134.
So this is the second, I think, LaPlatte Headwater Town Forum, and it's an update. And Jonathan, you're going to give us an overview of
Sure. So we mostly did not change the content, I would say. We deleted some content that we thought could be in an appendix, and also some content that is already in an appendix was just seemed redundant. It was a lot of times, if you look at, there's a whole section here that refers to restricted uses and unrestricted uses, and that is all directly out of the conservation easement. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the document. Honestly, it's been so long since we did it. I have to say I'm not totally familiar with it anymore either. But there are two conservation partners. It's let me see. This is tiny little Vermont Land Trust and Vermont Housing and Conservation Board are conservation partners. So we have to share all of any changes we make with them and get approval from them. Also, the conservation easement that was drawn up with the V.S.A. family, we have to adhere to all of the restricted uses and guidelines in that easement. So we haven't done anything in this document, in the changes to the document, other than remove some redundancy in how references were being made to the conservation easement, although we kept all of the permitted and restricted uses in the summary in section 1 of the document, so that's all still there. A lot of the description and background content is there, although we abbreviated some of that because a lot of it, one of the authors was Kristen Sharpless, and she was a graduate student at UVM and created a document, I think it was entitled Owl's Knoll, where she did her graduate thesis on that section of the town forest, and so there was a whole lot of detail from her thesis document on Owl's Knoll in this management plan, and we pulled a lot of that out, but then included her entire thesis document as an appendix. So it's all still as an appendix to this document, and we reference that in several places in this document. And then we updated the section on summary of actions, where some of the actions, the original actions, have been completed. So there's a section in section 3, summary of actions. Actually, it's a different section in this new document. I'm sorry, telling you the wrong thing here. Summary of actions is section 5 now in the new document. So the completed section has grown quite a bit, and then we updated the highest priorities and high priority and medium priorities within that section. And then the other main thing that we did was reorganize the document to try to make it a little more easy to move, to navigate within the document, and to, I guess, just in general, to follow, at least in our opinion. But overall, I would say that we didn't change the goals or the content. Where we felt like we really were changing the direction of the mission or removing important goals. We feel that that's all still there. And, we ended up with a document that's, I think, about 30 pages shorter in the original document, not counting, of course, the fact that we added to the appendices. Another important thing, I guess, that we did is we created a section for monitoring plans. The Indiana BAT section in this document could be considered a monitoring plan, but it's already had its own section, so we didn't move that. But we're planning as part of the Vermont Master Naturalist program to begin a deer monitoring program in the forest. So once we have a plan in place, we'll include that as an attachment, basically, as one of the monitoring plans. And we're definitely doing some invasive species monitoring and control, and we need really to include that as a monitoring plan.
And John, I have Pat on the phone, on speakerphone right now, so.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I go everything that John said. Some of the monitoring is a little bit of a wish list. I don't think we can commit to doing all the monitoring on a regular basis. It's things we'll try to do when resources are available.
Yeah, that's a good point. So we took some of the funding that we got from timber harvest from last winter and hired somebody to come in and survey the invasive species. We've gotten advice, well, really just from being in the forest ourselves, but also from the Chittenden County Forester Ethan Tapper, that there was patches of the forest and of the open land where there was significant populations of invasive species, and he felt that if we did nothing, that it was too much to control manually, and if we did nothing to try to control it, that it would begin to impede the regeneration ability of the forest. So we actually hired somebody to come in and do some control and expect that we would do that again. So, I consider that kind of part of the management plan and something that we could record and include.
Okay. And so just to be clear, there is a process.
For this, approving the plan, and so the Forest Committee has made those changes. We just got a summary of some of the changes. They then asked for public comment. They held a public hearing where I assume you've got some comments maybe or not. Obviously they've consulted with their partners. I imagine Ethan was in on it a bit. So now it comes to the select board for our approval, so it can be adopted. It's our policy to typically not vote on something that comes for the first time. So I would suggest we ask as many questions as we have right now. We can digest it more prior to our next meeting or when this next comes up. And it will also allow the public to digest it. If they have any comments, they can come to our next meeting, which of course is open to the public, and we can get any comments on it, and at that point decide whether to approve it or not. But does anybody have any specific questions for the Town Forest Committee, for Pat or Jonathan?
This is Mike Lohner. No questions, but just a quick comment. I've worked on forest management plans similar in the past, and I know this is a lot of work, so thank you so much for doing that to the entire committee.
Well, sure. You're welcome. being an update, I would say that the original authors did, I would say, the majority of the work. But thank you. One thing I would point out is that, when you're reading this, sometimes because of all of the different references to parts of the parcel, it's a 301 acre parcel. Some of it's open meadow, and other parts are forested. There's wetland and the stream obviously, the LaPlatte. But there's a map in the baseline document, the baseline appendices, which is the Vermont Land Trust document. So when they do projects like this, they go in and do an evaluation of the site. And they have lots of maps that they include that have to do with the natural communities that are present and perhaps the soil composition and wetlands. And then they also have photographs. So I think beginning on about page 15 of Appendix C, the baseline document, there are maps and then there are photographs. So if in reading through the management plan, you sit there wishing you had a map, there are some, but they're in that appendix.
Okay, thanks. And
Mike, I think you're right in acknowledging the Forest Committee and all the work they've done. They've really, in the last 5 years or 10 years, really done a fabulous job, recognized by many in this town and outside the town, and having Ethan provide his educational information and the recent walk they just took with a group is just fantastic to open up this treasure of the town for everyone's enjoyment and management of this resource. So thank you very much.
so
You're certainly welcome. I'm pretty new to the committee. Steve Russell and Pat Maynor were on the committee for a really long time. Steve, I think, as much as 60 years before his recent passing. But Pat served with Steve for a really long time. Was involved in developing the management plan for the Hinesburg Town Forest up in off of the hills. And they deserve, I would say, the majority of the credit.
We have a good committee right now, and we're lucky to have a county forester who puts an incredible amount of time to both of our town forests. So we're pretty lucky in this town to have two town forests. I guess
Any other
my
comments?
question, excuse me?
Pat's trying to say something, Phil.
We're lucky that we have two town forests and a good committee and a county forester who works with us and puts a lot of time into our two town forests.
Did you guys hear Pat?
Yep.
I did.
I guess my question is, should we try to be on your agenda for your next meeting for you to vote on this management plan, or how much time do you need?
I don't think we need a lot of time. I mean, I want to look it over between the meetings, and obviously we'll look to see if anybody else has any input. I think it will be up to Renee based on how busy our meetings are. We'll try to get it done quickly.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jonathan and Pat. Next
Yes,
item
sir.
on the agenda.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you.
Is review a draft town solar RFP from the Energy Committee. So we had this in our packet. I think there was a PowerPoint presentation and a draft of an RFP the Energy Committee put together, and I think is exploring ways to bring solar onto town property for use by the town and or community members. Is Mike on from the committee?
This is Chuck. This is Chuck too from the Energy Committee. Can you guys hear me? Yep. Hello?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Okay, good. I just wanted to do a brief introduction to this. Part of this proposal is in conjunction with our efforts to get the town to net zero. And we're starting with some of the municipal buildings. We are going to do an analysis of how to get 3 of the buildings to net zero. And our hope is that, we transition not only electrically, but thermally to renewable energy. And our plan is to do that via solar on various sites around town, but also using heat pumps then to generate the thermal energy. So that's kind of our overall plan to get the town to net zero and achieve some of the goals that the town has set itself, energy goals that align with some of the state energy goals. 90% renewable by 2050. So that's by way of introduction to what we're doing, and Mike Webb has taken the lead on this for us and has sort of identified, put together this little PowerPoint that we'd like to show you. And also, we have our goal is to try and get this thing moving along so that we may be able to benefit from some of the higher rates for producing solar energy, because those rates will change in July by state statute. So, Mike, if you're ready to go, you want to do run through the PowerPoint with everybody?
Yeah, thanks, Chuck.
Yep.
So for those that have it, yeah, go ahead, Phil.
I'm just gonna, Mike, I'll just jump in.
We'll go with the
We'll go with the PowerPoint.
Be aware that it might be a little bit slow as Renee gets it on the screen. So I'm assuming you can see it, Mike, with us?
I'm actually just dialed in on the phone, so I have my own copy, so you'll have to let me know if I'm getting ahead or behind or anything like that. I'll try to keep a good pace.
Okay, the computer is a little slow, but Renee is going to do her best, I think, to show the PowerPoint. Is that right, Renee?
Yeah, Mike's so Mike, if you can pause just a minute while it's taking a little while to load onto the screen.
Okay, no problem. While it's coming up, I'll just overview. There's about 6 charts in here. We won't spend a whole lot of time. I'll go through them fairly quickly, but so I'll talk about the goals that the Energy Committee came up with for going after and developing these solar projects. I'll talk about what community solar is, the benefits of community solar, and then I'll talk a little bit about the project development process. So Chuck mentioned that the net metering rate decreases in July, so we'll talk about what we have identified as the steps necessary to go from where we are today to approved solar projects. And that'll be a discussion where I think we're looking for some feedback on what the town will require at a number of these steps along the way. And then we have one slide that'll summarize RFP for you. So I'll give you an overview of an RFP, but we also have provided a copy of the full RFP document as well, if we can go into as much or as little detail into that tonight as you'd like.
Mike, can I interrupt you for a second? Do you want the printout one, or do you want the full PowerPoint up right now?
I think the full screen PowerPoint is probably the best for a screen share.
All right, I have it up.
Okay, great. So the second slide is Hinesburg Solar PV project goals. So these are the goals that the Energy Committee came up with that sort of set the framework for the project. First is to develop and install solar PV that will offset the full electrical load of the town facilities. So the first priority is to offset the load of the town facilities. And then second, offer community solar to electric customers in Hinesburg. So leveraging town properties, first generate enough solar PV to offset the load of the town. That is limited to a 500 kW cap allowable by a single user. So the town of Hinesburg does have some solar in place, and we'll go into the details of that. It's about 148 kW. And so we've taken a look at the load of the town, and we'll go into those details. So secondly, to offer access to renewable energy to residents of Hinesburg that may not be able to get it through other means. And then third, in the circumstance where there's additional town that is ideal for solar, to offer net metering credits to other Vermont electrical customers outside of Hinesburg, and that would more than likely be directed at larger consumers like businesses, etc. We want to host the solar PV projects on town lands and facilities. This will not only get the town participating and generating renewable energy, but will generate land lease revenue for the town as well in and on lands and locations that are otherwise unusable. So you're getting value to the town out of areas where you wouldn't otherwise. We are looking to leverage the net metering agreement ownership model, and what that means is third-party ownership. So the town wouldn't own the systems right out of the gate. It's possible that down the road the town may purchase the systems like they've done with the tracker array over by the lagoon. But a third-party ownership structure from the beginning will allow the project in the economics of the project overall to include the federal tax and the federal investment tax credit, which is 30%, which is a big swing in the economics of these projects. This model will also make it so that the town is not required to contribute any capital to build these design or build these projects. So under the third-party ownership model, a solar company would come in, incur the expenses of designing and building, going through permitting, all of that on their own, and then they would essentially provide power to the town. The town would pay a kilowatt-hour rate that is guaranteed to be lower than the current rate that the town is paying for electricity, and they would pay that over time to the solar provider. So they will provide turnkey development, construction. They'll have operating responsibilities. As you extend that conversation to community solar, they would have responsibilities for acquiring and managing customers within that community solar way, and we can go into some more detail on that. And then Chuck mentioned that the net metering agreement, or the net metering rate, will drop July 1st by a penny. So the rough math, if you're looking at the town load alone and what we would be generating out of the PV arrays associated with that, the town load, it would be about $5,800 a year difference if we were to get that solar permitted before July 1st as opposed to after. So it's not necessarily a huge thing. It's not a deadline that if we don't meet it, the project won't go forward at all. We just lose a penny per kilowatt hour within the economics of the deal. Any questions on any of that?
I have two comments. One is the 30% tax credit now is
6%.
26.
Unless something has been safe harbored. So it dropped January 1st this year. No problem. It dropped for everyone. And then the second one is the July 1st deadline is for the CPG to be issued. So it doesn't have to be built. It has to be issued by then, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So that's a little, just so everybody knows that they don't have to be completed by then, but the permit has to be submitted. They have to be initially designed and permitted for that.
I have a question. So this is all built on town land. Would these third parties be renting, leasing the land, or would there be an agreement that because they're making this solar energy, that would offset any lease that the town might ask for?
Yes, the town would lease land or roof space to the solar company. The solar company would typically receive a discounted lease rate, but that will pay some amount of money, typically, to the town for the use of the space. And then the town would also be paying a kilowatt hour rate for power, which is it's able to be offered at a lower rate than the town would be paying for power, partly because the solar developer is getting a lease rate at a lowered rate from that landowner, which would be the town.
Next slide, Mike.
Okay. So the third slide is just a little bit about community solar.
Hold on, it's not up yet, Mike.
Okay.
There we go.
Alright, so Community Solar Farm is a solar installation that accepts capital from and provides out credit and tax benefits to individuals and other investors. So essentially, you could build, a solar company could build an array of 30 panels, and an individual user can get or purchase electricity from one panel, from 5 panels, and it can be managed in a number of different ways. Now, whether an individual has the opportunity to invest capital and actually buy that panel, as opposed to just buying the energy from it, it can be done that way. There are multiple options on how community solar can be managed, and we'll go into some of that. I think generally, just to summarize the way we're going forward in terms of our intent within the RFP is for bidders to propose how they would manage community solar, and then we will be able to evaluate the different proposals and select a management style that we think meets the intent and goals of the town. So typically, individuals are offered the opportunity to buy KWH in portions of an array
that is installed. And I mentioned the solar company would likely operate and manage those accounts. The town, if they wanted, could be the operator, but typically you'll have the third-party operator as well. Any questions on
Chuck.
what community solar?
Just going to add a little something. This is Chuck. We have talked to a couple of community solar folks in the state, so there are different ways to organize these community solars, and it might be interesting for us to take a look at some that are already established in the state too.
Okay, next slide. This is the benefits of community solar.
It'll pop up.
Okay, and I'll breeze through this pretty quickly, but the benefits of community solar from an accessibility perspective. Not every home was designed for solar. Not every person lives in a building that is designed for solar. If you're renting an apartment, for example, you don't necessarily have the ability as an individual to make the decision to install solar where you live. So the community solar adds access to renewable energy that other typical residential systems may not. Economics is more of a solar PV thing than just community solar. It's easy, and if a customer is or an individual homeowner is intimidated by a construction project, a solar system at their house, this allows them to handle everything through their utility bill and purchase renewable energy without having to worry about any construction or contractors or a solar array and the electrical systems at their own home. If an individual moves or sells their house, they can still continue to purchase the renewable energy through the community solar system. And then we're obviously partnering with our utilities as well, which provides additional PV generation throughout the state. And the next slide is sort of more of the same on advantages of commercial solar over residential installations. For the sake of time, we can skim through this unless there's any other questions on why community solar is advantageous. Okay, so we'll move on to the sixth slide, which is the project development process. And you'll see at the top underlined for discussion. So again, we have a schedule that we'd like to meet to be able to lock these projects into the current net metering rate before it drops July 1st. We've sort of laid out some of the actions that we see necessary to be able to do so. If we are not able to proceed on the timeline here, or it doesn't mean that we can't go forward with the project. We'll still push forward with the projects as fast as we can. So today, 3/18, we're presenting the draft RFP to the Select Board. We have 3/20 to release the RFP to bidders. Now, that's under the assumption that we can move forward with a recommendation to release the RFP to bidders coming out of the Select Board meeting, but we're fully, maybe there's some additional discussion or additional steps that may need to happen to get that approval to release the RFP, and if there are, we're sort of looking for that feedback here. We plan to give about 3 weeks to the bidders for their response, and then we would, as the summarize the bid, make recommendation to the Select Board. We've selected the April 15th Select Board meeting there, but again, that assumes that we can stick to that timeline up front and that there's space on the agenda for that meeting to come back to you all with a recommendation and a summary of the bids received. And then we've got some actions that we need to learn more about the timing, but any proposed non-preferred site, a site that is not already designated as preferred, and when I say proposed, I mean a bidder proposes work at a location that is not considered preferred. Most of the locations that we'll talk about on the next slide are already considered preferred, not all of them. Any project on a site that is not already considered preferred will have to get a preferred site designation. And that requires approval from the Town Planning Commission, the Select Board, and the Regional Planning Commission. So those steps need to happen. I think it's pretty standard for those steps to happen across the state of Vermont, and we'll figure out the timing, but just to make everyone aware that those steps do need to happen. And then an artifact needed to move forward with the permitting is the option to lease agreement. And we'll need to get that reviewed by the town attorney. We checked with the town attorney, and Hinesburg does not have a draft solar lease agreement developed already. So we've asked within the RFP for the bidders to submit their draft RFP, and we'll be able to review those as a part of the bid package. And so then once that is negotiated and agreed upon between the selected bidder and the town, we would get that submitted to the PUC, and there's a 1 to 2 week sort of advance notice requirement. And so we need to get that submitted prior to the May 13th advance notice filing deadline, which goes to the 6/30 petition for certificate of public goods filed with the PUC, and that's what needs to happen to lock us into the rate prior to the drop on July 1st. So one takeaway here is that so we've identified possible locations on town land where bidders will or can propose solar PV. One bidder may propose a project on 2 or 3 different sites. Another bidder may project on all 5 different sites. It's possible that some of the sites will advance on a different schedule than some of the other sites. Again, if some of the sites are preferred, if some aren't, we may be able to do some portions of the project quicker than others. So it's likely that we'll have sort of work going on a different timeline as we move through the development process. I'll pause here for thoughts and comments.
So this is Jeff. I just have one question, and it might be more educational for me, but I'm looking at the RFP, and under section 1.3, it discusses, I know you don't have it up there, but I can go through it. Sorry, I should have had it right here. Under 1.3, scope of work, and it says, turnkey design for either 1, offset the electric consumption for the town facilities, 2, offer community solar to customers in Hinesburg, and 3, offer net metering credits to other Vermont electrical customers. I don't know if things have changed, but I do remember when we were talking about some solar projects in town before, one of the big items came up is making sure that those net metering credits stayed within the town. Does that make sense, and is that something we need to be concerned about?
When you say need
just
to be
explain the net metering credits. So my
yeah,
understanding
when
is
you
that
say
yep, go ahead.
Sorry. When you say needs to be within the town, it needs to be from whose perspective? Like a regulatory requirement, or?
Somebody was saying that they just wanted to ensure maybe it's the credits remained in the state and didn't go out of state. There's some,
Jeff,
and maybe I'm really off base here.
No, Jeff, you're referring to the renewable energy credit.
Okay,
And if
wrong credit.
If they don't stay in the state, they can sell them to coal companies in
Right.
Ohio that can
Right.
then don't have to do, yeah. What happens now is that all our renewable energy credits go to the utility. And they
Okay.
have to stay in the state. They don't stay in the town. But I thought, initially I thought you were saying, do we want to offer community solar just for Hinesburg residents? And
Yeah, no,
Jeff asked that too.
it was the renewable energy credits that you're referring to.
Yeah.
But this
They
is
they have to go with utility, and they have each utility has to have a certain amount of their portfolio that's renewable that stays in the state, and these would stay with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Chuck.
Okay, if no questions on that process, I guess maybe I'll just ask, have we missed anything? Has the Energy Committee missed any steps that others are aware that definitely need to happen within the framework of town approval here? Does this look reasonable?
So I'll just step in, Mike. So, one is your timeline is going to be extremely
To
difficult
make, I believe,
to make,
even
I
though
believe, even though
I am encouraging everyone to strongly consider this and to try to move this forward, and we certainly would want to move it as forward as quickly as possible. Number one, I think we'd have a hard time, in my opinion, as a board member, I'd have a hard time approving this today, since we are just seeing this over the last couple days, and it hasn't had any chance for public comment or townspeople or some folks in the town structure in the organization to, you know, sort of review it. So I think it's going to take a little bit of review. I will comment that this is the model to move forward for a town, because the town can't get any tax credits. So this is the model that's done for governments and nonprofits who want to do solar. They move in this way, and the business that puts in the system absorbs those tax credits and needs to own it for 5 years minimum. And then at that point, they could continue to own it. They could sell it to someone else, or the town, if we were to move forward, could then purchase it. And it's the exact same model that was done on the trackers in the lagoon, the 150 kilowatt system. So it's exactly the same model. There's just a few more state hoops to jump in to get the permitting for it. And I'll also, you know, potentially, although my company doesn't do roof mount stuff, if there was any possibility of my company getting involved in any of this, I would end up having to recuse myself.
Okay, thanks. So we can definitely adjust the next steps here. So it sounds like we would maybe consider bringing this on, or trying to get this on the agenda for the next select board meeting as well. Is that the next step?
I'm looking for the board to sort of weigh in here. That would be my opinion. I'm seeing Mary Lee saying it is our typical way we operate when something gets brought to the board for the first time. The public and anyone else who wants to absorb it and comment on it at this point wouldn't have a chance to do it by tonight. They're just finding out about it. So it would probably have to move to another meeting. But with that said, if a board member wanted to work on this with this committee and, you know, work through any of the possible issues that might be in the way of moving it forward and answering all the questions, you know, it's quite possible it could move on a faster track than it would just being stagnant, I guess.
Hey, Phil, I have a question. This is Chuck again. How does the public get involved, aside from the few people that are on, you know, coming in teleconferencing now? It seems like we're proposing to put, you know, panels on town hall, panels on the garage, at the town garage, up on the landfill. You know, do we want to make sure people know what these proposals are, and how do we reach enough people to do that, given the you know, the closure of most things these days?
Yeah.
And again, I'm advocating doing this as fast as we can, but I also want to have as much public participation that's reasonable, you know?
excellent question, Chuck. Normally I'd say, hey, have a public meeting next week and
Town
do it
hall,
in the
well, that's not happening. But perhaps you could post some things on Front Porch Forum as the Energy Committee. You could provide some links and, an opportunity for people who have questions. I'm sure some people there'll be a few who don't like it at all. And I imagine there'll be a few who really want to do it. And if you were able to sort of measure that, and there was a strong desire by townspeople to move forward, which I think there might be, that might help to move the project forward.
Okay. I think that is very possible to do something on Front Page Forum, yeah. I guess I'm speaking personally now. I don't feel the need. We all knew on the committee, this is a very aggressive scheduling in front of you. And given what's happened in between now and when we had kind of been planning this, I'm all for making sure we get enough feedback from the public, and also just sort of have you guys think through this also. There's a lot of information, particularly in that RFP, that you guys should take a look at. So.
Well, I'll ask the board just their general feelings on this proposal and trying to move this forward. Marilee? Marilee's giving us a thumbs up. Jeff P?
I think the proposal has more merits than liabilities. And again, I think I agree that, given that it's just being put out tonight, having the, townspeople be able to look at it and give some feedback would be a greater transparency than just moving on it now.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'd have to go through the devil's in the details, but, I trust the commission, and for me, any type of renewable energy and anything we can do to offset the town or give that possibility to others in Hinesburg. I'm actually a member of one of the community solar here in Vermont, and it's actually a really great thing. So I'm for it on the, broad spectrum there.
All right. And Mike, any thoughts?
Very similar thoughts. I definitely would like to spend a bit more time with this, and public input certainly important. I also, if this is similar to what we did out by the lagoons, I think it would be advantageous to kind of share that with public as you share it in the meetings, to say, we've already done this and it's already working for us.
Yeah. I'll talk about the lagoons briefly. So I think the town took them over after a little more than 6 years.
That was my company that put those in. They're some of the first trackers really in the state. It's one of the initial projects. And I will say that it went to vote for a bond vote to the town, and it basically was like a 2-to-1 in favor of borrowing the money to pay for those trackers. And at this point, I think we've owned them for about 3 years or so. And they've paid for the loan, so we're in the positive. There is a 10-cent adder that will disappear in another year and a half. So hopefully we've got enough positive going. When that 10-cent adder goes away, it's quite possible that we'll go into the negative, but it's a very small amount, and the calculations at this point say we'll still have gained more than lost. And then, over a total of a 10-year period, they're paid for, and everything after that is positive. And of course, since they've gone in and since we've purchased them, the price of electricity has gone up, and it will continue to go up the next couple of years. Green Mountain Power, it's already been approved by the Public Service Board. So every time the price of electricity goes up, the payback on something like this is much better. So it's been a positive step by the town, and I think the town supports this. Most people do. So I think if we can just demonstrate that a little bit, and each of us as a board member dig into these proposals, the RFPs and some of the details, and ask some hard questions to the Energy Committee, we can help understand it better, speak to it better to people who question it, and make an informed decision as quickly as we can with that. And I'll certainly dig into it very closely without getting and having an issue with a conflict of interest. I'll have someone in my company look over the RFPs very closely. Like I said, we wouldn't bid on any roof mount stuff, but we understand the business pretty closely, and it looks like it models most. If you see any of the projects going around in the state, this is how it's done. Mike and Chuck, any last minute thoughts?
Just there's the last slide there, slide 7, which summarizes the RFP. I won't spend more than 30 seconds here. The RFP doesn't commit the town to moving forward with the project or incurring any expenses if we're to release the RFPs. We're simply gathering proposals. We talked about that there's multiple bidders who are being invited to participate. An individual bidder can propose a project at one or multiple locations. We, as the town, could select one or multiple bidders. And a bidder is also afforded the opportunity to propose a project on a piece of property that has not been identified if they think there's a reason for a good reason. And that may be off-town land. If there's a landowner that a particular solar company has a relationship with, and there's a ability to, and again, a financial reason to propose another location, the RFP offers them the flexibility to do that. And you can see the possible project locations here that we've identified. So the town landfill, the new town garage roof that is just adjacent to the landfill there, the fire station, the town hall roof, the police station roof. The police station roof sort of sparked some of this, where we as a committee got a request to evaluate solar at the police station. That roof in particular is not ideal from a solar perspective in terms of orientation and sort of the shape and structure of the roof. We've left it on the list because we know there was interest specifically at the police station, and we'll sort of allow the bidders to propose the most optimal project that they can come up with. So it's been left on the list for now, but we know that it's not as ideal for solar as the other locations. We know that there's also been interest expressed in a parking canopy structure near the new rec fields that would potentially cover some trucks and some equipment. So I think we're looking for feedback on some of those locations as well to make sure that, again, folks think that those are the right locations we should be offering within the RFP, and we're not missing something that would preclude a solar project from going in any of these locations.
So if I could add a little bit to that, we have 2 utilities in town, DMT and Vermont Electric. So we can only produce 500 kilowatt hours. We're thinking, or kilowatts, I'm sorry, to get to our cap. So we could do some of that in the landfill and some of that on the police station. So each utility, we have to figure out where the demand is. We have the garage has a need there, but if we produce more than the garage takes, we can't push that over into the GMP territory, so we have to use it there. So at this point, we were thinking that the landfill could become a real, put some on the garage, but the landfill also could be available for individuals in the town that want to participate in that. So that, that's one way to utilize, the landfill stuff, the landfill production. And then the rest of it in GMP territory can go to offset our town-wide need for electricity. Okay, it's a little complicated, but not too complicated.
Any more comments?
That's all I had.
Okay. I
Okay.
think that's it. Thank
That's it.
you, Mike
Thank-
and
Thank
Chuck.
you, Mike and Chuck.
Yep, thank you guys for
Thank you.
listening to this proposal, yeah.
Thank
you.
Appreciate it.
Obviously,
thank
a
you.
lot of work
Obviously, a
went
lot
into
of work.
that.
Uh,
Next item on the
Next item
agenda
on the agenda
is
Quick
items.
comment.
item,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
And I know you meant not too much by it, but might I propose you not share a draft RFP with a possible bidder for their comment on it, just for the optics of that.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Fine. Good point.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Like I said,
Like I
I
said,
don't see anything
I don't
there
see
that
anything there
is,
that is in our bailiwick at all. We don't do any roof mount stuff. But I'll stay away from it. Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Any other comments?
Just for the record on that, this draft RFP has been posted on the town website at this point. So we have not released the RFP to any bidders specifically, but the information has been made available to the general public.
Yes, of course.
All right. Next on the item on our agenda is the impact fee ordinance review. So we looked at this at our last meeting. We had contacted, Renee did a lot of work and contacted a couple of contractors who could help us. We've been talking about doing this for more than a year, for quite a while. We have some impact fees now for
and fire.
police and fire.
And so we wanted to make sure they were up to date and made sense against our capital plan. I think at our last meeting, we were educated even more on how exactly they work and some of the limitations. There's some of that information in your packet, so I strongly recommend the board members take a good look at that and how the impact fees work and how they could be of help for the town. And so the thought here is, do we continue to move this forward? We had two people who were interested in this, and in the end, the one company from down in, I think, Sharon, Vermont, chose not to participate. It was a little bit outside of her typical scope. So we have one possible proposal from RSG, from Jonathan, who's a Hinesburger, works for the company. What do you think, Renee? What are you thinking our approach on this should be?
So I think tonight would, because it's a new board, you guys haven't talked about, not everyone has talked about it. This was, again, just a sort of a review to have people ask questions that make sure they understand the impact fees. And then at a future meeting, with the uncertainty of what is going on around us, I'm not sure what that meeting will, where it will land at this point, because we do have a lot of other issues that are continually changing as we speak. So Impact fees, we can have it on a future meeting and bring the consultant back.
Any comments? Well, hearing none. So yeah, do take a look at it. We have impact fees in place now. The idea is to modify them, and to do so,
we have an excellent
capital
plan that's been
plan
defined over the last few years. But do we need to modify that at all? Do we need to do that more? And then the question last time was on water and wastewater. We have allocation fees that we charge, for example, a new developer to get water or wastewater allocation. That's an upfront fee that helps to pay for the capital equipment in place or needed to expand a system. And so I think part of our question is, how are those fees structured? What can we expect to see from income over time? And is that appropriate to help pay for the capital costs to, for example, expand our water system? And are those costs fair to any developer? Or, because any cost put on a developer is going to raise the cost of that housing or capital that building for capital. So do take a look at it closely. If anybody has questions, I'm certainly available, and I know Renee would be too. So
Phil, the question you just asked is why we would hire somebody to look at these things for us, correct?
I think that's what we were thinking we would do. Somebody who's gone through this. It is a sort of a legal web of, you need to do it correctly before you start charging people, giving them these impact fees. They need to have separate accounts. They need to be accounted for. And we want to make sure we've identified every area where it could be applied, and then what should the fee be. And there's a lot of guidelines, and it's like anything else, it's sort of a science. Renee, have I covered that pretty well?
Yes. The last time, when the original impact fee ordinances were created, the town hired a consultant to create those and help with the capital plan. And since then, this is another update, but also to consider potentially other impact fees that could be added to that. Right now, we just have the police and fire. There's other opportunities for transportation impact fees, and recreation, other types of fees that could be established. But yet there's sort of a balance of ensuring that the town is still an affordable place for businesses to want to come into and people to live. So there's definitely a balance.
Right. So the question in front of us is not, do we want to increase or include new impact fees, but do we want to hire somebody to run a research project on that for us and give us a proposal? Correct?
I think that's correct. I mean, I think we want to know, should we do an update?
What are the other areas that we might consider, as Renee said, recreation? Do we have capital we need for recreation? Capital equipment for sidewalk maintenance? Those type of things. And so we ask those questions. They look at our capital plan. We might have to adjust our capital plan a little bit to make sure things are well defined. And then propose some impact fees, and I imagine it's just like doing a zoning reg where you'd have some public meetings and an opportunity for public input beforehand. Good question. All right.
All right?
So please
So
take some time to try to get a little educated on it. I know that I had been saying that for many months, and then finally Renee helped get some of this information together, so I'm feeling like I'm starting to get educated on this. And I would encourage us to move forward with it. I think the question is this the right proposal and the right company to do it? Okay.
Okay.
Next item
Next
on our
item.
agenda. This is a critical yearly item. Perhaps one of the main reasons we were voted in to represent the town. Consider approving the liquor licenses. So, I have a whole list here, but before we do so, we have to convene as the liquor board. Marilee, do you have a motion?
Yes, I move that we convene as the liquor board. See if I got the right language here.
Local board of liquor
Local
control.
Yeah, I move that we convene as the local board of liquor control. Absolutely. Yep.
Second.
Thank you, Jeff, for seconding that. And I have a whole list that I'll go through. So there's three categories. There is the Class 1, which I think is all kinds of liquor. Class 2, which is beer and wine. There's also an outdoor permit one.
And Renee, the class
Renee,
3,
the class
how does
3,
that one
how does that one
fit in?
Renee?
Yes, sorry. The class 3, I don't have them in front of me at the moment. If you can look at the class, so there's the class 1, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the one where the restaurants were for the sale of alcohol? And
Yes.
then class 2, right? And then class 2 businesses.
Yes.
Hearing you.
And perhaps, and there is also the outdoor permit. So those are really the three that we have. So I'm going to go down through a list, and we have quite a pile of them. So first, I will do the first class licenses that are requested, and I will say that we typically reach out to our local police department to make sure there hasn't been any significant issues with any of these, and there have not. So we move forward with that guidance, I guess. So for first class licenses, we have Back to Basics, which is the public. We have the Parkside
And
Bakery
Cafe.
and Cafe.
And we have Papa Nick's Restaurant and TC Hospitality, doing business as Good Times Cafe. So those are the 4. Oh, wait, we also have Cedar Knoll. And we have Bucky's Pub. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I would make a motion to approve those first-class licenses for those 6 businesses in Hinesburg. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving those, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
All right. Next, I will make a motion to approve the second-class licenses, which include
Route 116
Route
Wine and
116
Spirits
Wine-
in the Plaza. Frost Beer Works. Global Montello Group, which is the Jiffy Mart. Jolly Associates, which is the mobile station. KPH Drugs, which is Kinney Drugs. KB Enterprises, which is Lampman's. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 again. Is there a second?
Is there a second?
I didn't hear you make the motion, but I second it
Oh,
nonetheless.
that was a
Oh,
motion.
that was a motion. Approve those, sorry. Approve those,
Local Hinesburg
local
businesses
Hinesburg businesses
for a second
for a
class
second-class
license.
license.
Okay, now I will formally second that motion.
Any discussion?
The only one I had is, because Frost is in that, I'm just wondering about foam, because I know they
Yeah,
sell.
I thought the same thing, and they haven't yet applied, so we might have to poke them to get that.
So I just received all of them that have been sent to Missy, and typically there are a few others that come in later on.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff, for doing that after-work investigative.
I have to make sure that it's available.
Okay, all those in favor of the second-class licenses as noted in the motion, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay. There also are on these applications an additional page, so I'm going to call those out.
And I'll make a motion. I don't know that we have to for sure, but a motion to allow an outside to serve outside, so a patio sort of. It's part of a page here. So those that have applied for, let me get the exact words. Yes, there you go. Thank you.
Go. Thank you.
Outside consumption.
Outside consumption permit. I'll make a motion to approve those for the following businesses. Back to Basics, which is the Public House, Bucky's Pub, Cedar Knoll, Frost Beer Works, Parkside Cafe and Bakery, and Good Times, TC Hospitality Good Times Cafe.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mary Lee. Any discussion? Jeff French, no, you can drink a beer on your patio. You don't need a permit. I know you were questioning that.
I was just wondering if we're all supposed to have a drink while we're the liquor control board.
I've always wondered that.
You know. Anyway.
All right. All those in favor of approving those outside permits, say aye.
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 Okay. So that's unanimous. And now we'll need a motion to get out of the liquor control board. Is there a motion for that? To adjourn?
Yes, I make a motion that we adjourn as the local board of liquor control.
Second. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 And our work isn't done. There are dozens of signatures that are going to be required on all of these permits. And I think, Renee, I'll try to sign where I can before I leave tonight. And Renee will figure out a way how everybody can get these things and sign them in the next week or so. Does that sound okay, Renee?
Yes, I will find a method to do it so you guys can individually come and sign.
PDF signatures?
And
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
I
Can we
don't-
do electronic signatures?
I don't, I mean, they're not fillable PDF.
Could probably make that happen.
Our documents, they're from the State Department of Liquor Control. So,
Okay, just let us know how to sign.
okay.
Okay. Thanks. I'm sure everyone's wondering how to do that in today's situation. Next item is reviewing our
CBC appointment procedure
CBC
policy.
appointment.
This has been in place for quite a long time, this policy, and we do refer to it once in a while when it comes time to appoint or questioning a reappointment. And I think we pulled it out when there were some questions in January about some reappointments. And when we pulled it out, we realized it needed a little bit of updating, a new date and new formatting, but the general meat of the policy is pretty much the same. Is that correct, Renee?
That is correct. I did.
It's reformatted as it's more up to date with how we've been doing our different policies. And we corrected the dates.
I mean, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the policy as noted if everyone's had a chance to review it and feels comfortable with it, since there's no significant changes.
I reviewed it and it looks really accurate and clear and updated. So I'm in favor of passing it.
All right, so I'll make a motion to
All right,
approve
so I'll make a motion
the
to
revised
approve
committee board
the
commission
revised
appointment
committee
procedure
board
policy
commission appointment
with the
procedure
minor
policy with the
um,
minor
changes that were made to bring it up to
changes
the
that were-
latest formatting.
I'll second it.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? If people feel like they've looked it over enough? All those in favor of approving the policy, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? I should say any opposed, but I can see visually everybody's raising their hand and saying aye. Val, I'm assuming you're getting it all.
Yeah, I'm getting it,
Next
Phil, no
item on-
problem.
All right. I know if you're not, you're going to let me know. Next item on the agenda is town administrative report, sorry. So we did have something in our packet that reviewed a number of things. I'm guessing there's been a little bit of activity at the town hall in the last couple of weeks, but is there anything you'd like to add or emphasize for us, Renee?
So basically, in the last 5 to 6 days, we are completely reinventing everything we do here and how we do it, and creating different ways to still continue services to our residents. However, most importantly, and outside of all of these things we've discussed, is people. And that is where our priority should be and needs to be, about caring for our neighbors, our friends, and our community. And so while we did try to conduct regular business tonight, I don't want that part to be lost about what's happening around us, because that's where our focus needs to be. We are changing everything that we're doing, but as is all of our neighbors, our other local businesses, our other towns across the state, across our nation and the countries all around us in the world. So I really think we want to emphasize what's happening here and have that be a bit of a focus for tonight's meeting. So involved with that, yes, there have been a lot of things going on, and in addition to creating an online platform for this meeting so that people could participate. And I would have to say, I think there was more participation tonight than we have at most of our meetings. So that was a good thing that came out of this. We've also, really emphasized how to reaching out to neighbors, using your neighborhood email lists, contacting, if you have elderly neighbors somewhere, making sure you're getting those phone numbers. Just reach out to people. Different ways to do it, but show people you care, because that's the biggest piece right now. So all of these other things in the world aren't so important as they used to be last week or the week before that.
Well said.
Thank you, Renee.
Renee, a quick comment on that, and also recognizing Elizabeth's email to us. I live at up on Thistle Hill, and so we have the advantage of being a housing association, and so we have all of our emails, and we occasionally get together around community things. And one of the things we did just over the last 2 days is we put together a volunteer assistance crew where 4 people are available to the residents of Thistle Hill. If they're housebound, they can't get out, they need a prescription, groceries, whatever it might be, and created an online Google form that they can fill out that will go to one coordinator, and then that person will round robin the need to the various volunteers. I would be willing to share that with other neighborhoods that want to do similar activities.
So, Mike, I want to add to that. We are working on that. We have someone from the fire department that has created a Google form that we will soon be able to send out links to. We're organizing the structure of that. Again, I think I explained it a little bit earlier in the meeting, to have some point people to be sort of acting as triage to direct either the people that are wanting to volunteer to the appropriate services that we already have in place, like Hinesburg Community Resource Center, AgeWell. And then for those who have needs that, whether it's they need groceries or supplies or some sort of thing like that, the form already has some of those things that they can add to, and then those needs would be directed to the appropriate source. So I know this is happening in a lot of neighborhoods too, and I think if anything good comes out of it is people that are making more connections than they did before.
Definitely, and thank you.
And again,
Sorry.
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Phil.
And I'd like to, just sort of recognize Renee and the entire town team
for the adjustments they've had to make. I think many of us have seen adjustments we've had to make at work And the town is much more complex. There's a lot more sort of interaction, from the town clerk who needs to interact with the public to the road crew to we had Al here. And while there's been changes that have been made that, people are wondering about, I can tell you, and I'm not taking any credit at all, but Renee has contacting me late at night or on Sunday or whatever, just keeping me informed as we've gone along that here are a lot of the changes that are being made. And I know that it's not being done in a vacuum. It's being done with, the latest information from our state emergency management, who is putting out information on, a daily basis, if not more than once a day. I know Renee is getting access to that, and I see some of those. And so all of the activity that's happening is new. It comes with a little risk when we try something, it's not always going to work 100%, and there's things that, aren't perfect, but I appreciate the fact that the town under Renee is willing to take a little risk to move forward rather than do nothing. And it seems like things are coming together, and talking with Al, he seems to feel like generally the town has done pretty well. Obviously, there's more to do and things will change, but I'm feeling like we're in pretty good hands, and I encourage her and the town to continue to adjust as they see necessary, because they have really the best interest of everybody as they do this. So I appreciate it, and I just want to acknowledge that.
I'll second that.
I'll third it.
Any
So
other?
my comment, Renee. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Everything froze for a second there. How are you doing otherwise? Like, folks working from home, or people just staying away, or how is that working? I'm just wondering if there's things we can do to help, technology and things like that we might be able to leverage, like electronic signing, or a way to message or things like that. There's things we can do. I just want to know if any of that could help. I could give you a call. We could talk about it. Or
So we
if it's
do
pretty
have
much-
the majority of people at the hall are now working remotely. I've been working with our tech group, and I'm on waiting on a queue to get remote access to the server. We've also been working with companies so that we can have alternative ways to have phone access from our homes, or access to our voicemails. So all of those things have been put into place from the point we made that the decision was made over the weekend.
Okay. All right. Just put it out there.
Doing a lot of outreach with.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I know you're on it and have it covered. Just putting out the offer.
All right, we'll keep moving on.
I just wanna-
So last
You're breaking up a little bit, Jeff.
talk about.
Yeah, you were breaking up pretty good there.
So I was just saying that the HCRC board met last Saturday to talk about the crisis, and that we intend to keep the food shelf open for the entire time, change our protocols, and we will do food deliveries, and we anticipate an increase in the number and the need. Did that come through?
Yeah.
Yes.
And we also have, cash assistance available for people. We can make payments, one-time payments, if they need a bill paid for their fuel oil or electricity, so that they're not trying to make decisions about heating their house or feeding their families.
Thank you, Jeff. That's good to hear. And it reinforces the town's support for the Hinesburg Community Resource Center at the last town meeting. And I'm sure they'll take additional donations. It seems like a very efficient place to put a little bit of money to go a long way to help our neighbors.
And along those lines, I want to point out the nice post that Colleen McKinnon has put up for when different neighborhoods can contribute to the free pantry in the center of town there, so that it doesn't get all overwhelmed in one day, and on the other hand, so it stays stocked.
I think that was Lori McKenna. Colleen is the school board member, but either way, you're right.
Okay, I did think it was Colleen, so I wasn't looking very carefully. Thought she must be a busy lady.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which
Forum.
is
Does
select board
anybody
forum. Does anybody
have any
have
items
any,
they want to bring up?
items they want to bring up?
Welcome, Mike and Jeff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll thank everybody for being flexible for this.
So
So
now I'm gonna read a little statement that I put together, so bear with me. This is concerning the Vermont gas settlement, which happened several years ago. And there was some information and maybe some misinformation in Front Porch Forum about it. I am feeling like I needed to honestly address my part in that that happened many years ago, because I don't think it was honestly portrayed from my point of view. So I'm just going to read this statement, and I'm going to send a copy to you to perhaps put in the minutes. So anyways, bear with me. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. So due to the sometimes conflicting information on Front Porch Forum, I thought, Phil, it appropriate to give my opinion on the settlement VGS, Vermont Gas settlement history, especially since I was a select board member through the whole process, and I was originally tasked to start the negotiation with Vermont Gas. And that's the part I think I have some responsibility, and this is my opportunity to be clear about my role in this. So I was a member of the select board and was tasked to help work on the original negotiations with Vermont Gas in their effort to gain access through Japreg Park. I expressed my opinion regularly that I believed since Vermont Gas had a Public Service Board approval for the transmission line, that the town would not be able to stop them, ultimately. starting in the fall of 2012 and through the summer of 2014, the town met a couple of times with Vermont Gas. I believe it was only myself and Joe Colangelo, who was the town administrator at the time. We negotiated some terms. The Conservation Committee was not included in those discussions, and today I'll say that was my mistake not to bring them in. The terms included $75,000 payment after initial ask by the town for $125,000. It included additional funds for the warbler protection and JPRAG activities, and some additional conditions on timing and maintenance along the gas line, and expansion of the gas line up the Richmond Road. These terms were shared with the Select Board in executive session. The Select Board indicated the terms seemed okay. No response. There was never any response after this agreement was a draft. There was never a response back or acknowledgement from Vermont Gas. There was never a vote, and if there was a vote, it would have had to have happened in open session. I shared some of the basic conditions of the agreement with the Conservation Commission chair, only as a heads up as to where this might be going. I wanted to show that there was some protection of the park and warbler habitat in the agreement. No additional actions were taken, as this was just a draft. Much time passed, where occasionally the topic of Vermont Gas and JPRAG came up at our Select Board meetings. Everyone, including the town administrator, stated no one had heard from Vermont Gas. In the winter of 2016, a Select Board member went to a Public Service Board hearing and found out our town attorney had signed the draft agreement with apparent authorization by the then town administrator, Trevor Lasher. Members on the board were surprised to hear this. Some citizens claimed a violation of open meeting laws if this agreement was done without any open meetings. The Select Board, by vote, agreed this could be a violation and to void any potential agreement. We would then have to negotiate new terms in open meeting. Local opposition to the gas line consolidated and mobilized around this time. The Conservation Commission financed a wetland analysis that reported a different conclusion than the Vermont Gas wetland evaluation. By the time JPRAG again became a priority for Vermont Gas, local opposition and the amounts paid for easements and rights of way in other towns completely changed the negotiating environment. Hinesburg had much greater negotiating power, largely due to the efforts of the Conservation Commission and local organizers. Vermont Gas came back and negotiated new terms, increasing the settlement to $250,000 and some additional funds for the warbler, etc. Also, rather than trenching through the park, they would directionally bore under the park. The agreement was approved by the Select Board in open meetings. The $250,000 funds were voted to be spent on the Bissonnet fields, $190,000 of the $250,000, with the remainder put into a fund for environmental education. We have yet to allocate that to anything in particular. And then I note that these Select Board votes were typically not unanimous. So that's just my sort of statement and desire to get out, my involvement in this, because there's been some communication out there like, it was, pursued by other people in a different way than since I was there. That's exactly how I remember it. And I was involved in that original negotiation, which now doesn't look like a very good negotiation. So I'll take full responsibility for how that all happened. So that's it, unless somebody has any comments.
I think it's, you know, I don't know what the word thank you is, but, you know, appreciate you stepping up and clearing the air. And I know that I know what you're referring to, kind of going around Front Porch Forum. And, you know, I'm sure those folks will appreciate that you stepped up and given that statement. So.
Thanks, and you know,
Bill, can you email me that, a copy of that so I can attach that to the minutes?
yes, I will, Val.
Thanks.
Okay, unless there's more questions, and this may not be the end of it. People may have different recollections, but I just wanted to say these are my recollections, and I'll take responsibility for, you know, how it all transpired. Is there any more comments on Select Board Forum? No mea culpa. All right. Review the minutes from February 19th. Those were in our packet. Do I have a motion? Marilee?
So moved. I move to approve the minutes with changes.
I'll second.
Second? All right. So there's only 3 of us there, so I think only 3 of us can approve it. Are there any comments by either of you two?
No.
So I did find just one error that is a typo. It's on page 3. The about a quarter of the way down from the top, Colleen noted enrollment is remaining steady. Colleen said a larger system, meaning the 5 towns consolidating, can adapt more, and it says readably. I think it means readily.
Mm-hmm.
You see where I'm talking about, Val?
Yeah, I got that, Marilee. Yep. I'll fix it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any others? I looked it over. It seems pretty good. Thank you, Val, for capturing that, what seems like a very long time ago.
That's right.
All right, so with that one change, all those in favor of approving the minutes as noted, say aye.
Aye.
Val, you saw the 3 of us approved it.
Yeah, I got that.
Okay, next item is consider approving the warrants, including payroll. I'll make that motion. And those were signed by both Marilee and I over the weekend, I think. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Oh.
So maybe Mike and Jeff, whether you're aware or not, but once a week, the select board has a chance to look at the warrants, all the bills that were paid, and the payrolls that were paid. There's a record in the town clerk's office. She gets it ready usually on a Thursday, and she needs at least, based on our policy, 2 select board signatures.
Typically,
Typically,
you know, a couple of us have, there was a time I was on the select board and I didn't do it regularly, but now I am. Anybody can look at them. We can show you where they are, and anybody wants to review and or sign them, that's good. But typically, I think lately, Marilee and I have been doing it, but it's certainly open to the rest of you at any time. Occasionally, there might be a cookie or a piece of chocolate out there. So, just throwing that out there. So with that, motion and second, all those in favor of approving the warrants, including payroll, say aye.
Say aye.
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 Okay? And we have no need to go into executive session. Any last minute comments before let's look at the time. Oh my God, did you see that, Renee? What time it is?
You couldn't have done it any better, Phil.
It was perfect.
I
Really
sure
good.
am glad that you agreed to be chair again, Phil.
Yes, thank you. And you, Marilee, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thanks for putting together a very doable agenda, Renee. So with that, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, any other comments?
Just
And
Renee. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to, Renee, if there's any way, at least I or anybody can help you out. I'm sure you're under a lot of stress in these times, but we're here to help you out with whatever you need.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeff.
And thank everybody for helping pulling this together. So with that, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Have a good night, everyone.
See you soon.
And
Thank you.
Renee, I think this was very successful.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you for getting this
Very
platform.
good.
I think it worked really well.